Your money, your taxes, your truck, and your road to success in the trucking industry. This is Trucking Business and Beyond, the show that puts the money where it belongs, back in your pocket.
Good morning, you beautiful bunch of fuckers, and welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Friday, August 9th. We are here live. It's going to be a free-for-all for the most part today. I think Joel is busy in meetings all day. I don't know what Alec is doing. I think Henry's joining us at some point. So we'll just kind of make it a free-for-all. Anything goes. Phone lines are open right now if you want to jump in and join me. If you're watching on the live stream, you can dial 855-950-3835. If you're listening on the app, you can hit that call now button. It looks like Henry is here right on time this morning, so we'll bring him in and we'll get started. Henry, good morning.
Good morning. Greetings from the Waupun Truck Show in Wisconsin. Actually, the last one.
How funny that you are there. I was going to bring this up today for a couple reasons. I've for a lot of years now, I've talked about how truck shows just keep disappearing. We used to go to a lot of truck shows every year, and most of them are gone now. This is one I've never been to. I do have to say I've never been to this one, but I read this morning that it was the 35th and final, so we've lost another truck show.
Yeah, and in the case of this one, it's not for lack of attendance. It's from what I've gathered, and I've been hearing it for years. The people that have been doing it for years. It's not a for-profit truck show. It's benefiting Make-A-Wish and Reach, I think, is the other deal. And the people that have been doing it are tired. And
yeah, I can imagine.
The next generation, the next. I mean, there's a lot to do putting on a truck show.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah,
well, you know that from the CMCs.
Exactly.
I mean, everybody thinks this stuff just magically happens. I know what it is. Just sometimes just getting the truck there, and basically, they kept trying to get the next generation to take over, and they just weren't stepping up to the plate so fine. And I've heard it for several years that they were, we're tired.
Right.
And what I have a sneaky suspicion, though, that it won't be the last one. What I think this is going to end up being like, it reminds me of the kid that never wants to move out of the house. So the parents say, hey, you need to make a move. We're sold the house and we're moving to Florida.
Got it. So you're hoping somebody in the family might step up once they realize that either they step up or it disappears.
Right.
Yeah.
And I may be wrong. It's just a funny feeling.
You mentioned the CMC, and I've talked about this in the past. We didn't stop doing the CMC in 2018 because it wasn't successful. We stopped because it was too successful. It grew so big, and we made a mistake. I can look back and see when we were in Kansas City, we were limited to 250 people a year. That's all we could get. That's all the facility would hold for us to be able to do all the things we wanted to do. And what happened was we kept having a waiting list. So we'd say, look, we're full this year. We'll start a waiting list. You can come next year. Except what would happen is we would reward the people that came that year. So at the end of every event, we would open up a special registration first for the people who were there that wanted to come back the next year. Because we wanted to reward them. They're already there. They're supporting us.
Hey, let me interrupt you. Can you hear this?
Yeah. What?
I don't know if you heard that. An old two-stroke Detroit just rolled by.
Oh,
I mean, you got to hear that.
That's a sound. That was my first truck. First truck was a two-stroke.
Yep.
Yeah. So we had this waiting list, but we'd allow people to re-sign up first. And we got to the point where about 70% of the people who came each year would sign up for the next year. So then people on the waiting list, we had people who had been on the list 2 years and couldn't get in because we just didn't have enough seats each year. So we moved it. when we moved it and it went to 400 plus people, it was taking us 7 months to prepare for it. And it was just a
Hmm.
huge distraction for the company, and we're not big enough to handle that. So that was when we took 2019 off to reimagine and reconfigure the whole event. And then COVID happened. So now we're back. It's a whole different program now. But we got a taste of what it's like to try to put on a big event like that. You can't describe how much work it is.
Well, and on the big truck shows, I blame the promoters somewhat for it, the demise of them. And when I say that, with what I do, you get to see some other things. But to me, it became almost a contest between the OEMs, which on the big shows like Mid America, Dallas, and all them when they were there, the OEMs to me reminded me of the anchors at the mall,
Yeah. Right.
right?
Right.
They
Yeah.
they were the anchors of the show,
Yeah.
and it turned into a contest who could build a bigger and fancier booth.
When I
And
found out how much money those companies spent on the Mid America show, I was blown away. I had no idea it could
it's
have been that
un
much money.
uh, there's no way you can recover that.
No, no, not at all.
They couldn't build enough trucks to recover that.
Nope, nope. The
And
the,
then
the math
and
just
then when
doesn't
you
work.
the high watermark was when Navistar took up half the wing. Remember that? Every truck had a custom paint job on it. They even had trucks that had nothing to do with that show. They had trash trucks, everything there.
Right, right.
And
Yeah, and I
that then
always
and after that, it started taking off
I, I
the other way.
I always loved the Peterbilt booth with the ladies in evening gowns playing, big grand pianos.
Oh, I thought that was awesome.
I did too, but you know what? It's not really
Uh,
fitting for that crowd. I mean, you should
yeah,
have
but it's
had.
funny that brand sells on that, and they buy into it. They even put the logos on their truck that says about that with their whole. So somewhere deep rooted, maybe it's in the closet. It appeals.
Yeah, I mean, instead of a woman in an evening gown playing a grand piano, wouldn't they have been much better with the woman in Daisy Dukes and cowboy boots playing a banjo or something?
No, I don't. I really don't. In my case, and I really, and that's not my brand. Wasn't my brand even before what I'm doing. But if there was any one thing they did that I applauded, that was it.
Well, I loved it. That's why I
And
said I loved it. I thought, but
in
I
fact,
think it's the wrong crowd for
there's
that, though.
there's there's two things on that. Well, it's sort of classic,
Oh, it's very,
and they're
and
into classic.
I love classical piano. That's why I liked it. But and again, you look at those booths and the cost, and I was just blown away. I remember hearing, and this was '08, one of those years, '08, '09, when the OEMs pulled out. The economy was so bad they decided not to come, and that was the first time I remember that ever happening. And I've been going to the show for 30 some years, and when I heard that they
Well,
were forfeiting, I don't know, like over $1 million, or maybe it was even much more than that, several $1 million that they were forfeiting by canceling at the last minute. And I thought, wait a minute, if it cost them a couple million not to go, what does it cost them to go? And the numbers are just mind
I
boggling.
heard the one figure, and it wasn't the one I was with, but I heard the one figure was over $15 million the one year.
I think that could be correct. Yeah. Which is just hard to get your head around for a 3-day event. And
Well,
how,
for them, it's not a 3-day
well,
event. Back then, the
right,
planning used to
right.
start like the week after the show ended.
Well, exactly. Right. And that's what happened with us in the CMC. It becomes a year-round planning event that takes a lot of time and money and resources. And so and this is across the board. You don't see the kind of trade shows we used to see. I think the '80s was kind of the peak of trade shows. 80s, maybe into 90s, and they've all been kind of declining ever since.
Yeah. Well, what I thought, the promoter, where they messed up, where they lost their anchors, they should have said, you can bring 4 trucks. You can have a booth to take break in. And not much more than that. When they start building 2-story buildings with balconies inside the building,
Wait,
yeah, your cost is probably. And here's the worst part about that: when they do a lot of that stuff cannot be reused because that's so last year.
well, right? Yes, sometimes there's a lot of that. Wasn't there a year Mercer had a really big? Didn't they have like a cafe on the second floor of their?
They still use that. They're still using
Are
that.
they still
It was
using
there
that
this
one?
year.
Yeah. Well, I didn't.
Yeah.
Here's the other problem with that show. I've been going for 30 some years. I almost never get to see much of it. I
Yeah, I know.
never really get to
This
spend
last
the
year,
day
because
walking
we weren't
around the
there as a
show.
booth, I got to see more than I've seen in a decade.
Yeah. Even when I'm not actively doing something like an event or a seminar, or I just walking around, I get stuck standing in one place talking to people. So I never really get
Hmm.
to see the show. Like this year, several people that I have very close relationships with, that I usually at least get to go over, shake their hand, and say hi. I didn't even get to do that sometimes this year.
Hmm. But yeah, that's where I think the promoters messed up. They should have reined in the OEs before they outmoneyed themselves to where it wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and said, you're bringing 4 trucks, factory paint jobs. They're not going to be, because as soon as you start doing that stuff, you just run the cost to where it's no longer a benefit.
Yep. Yep. That's what
In
ends up
my
happening.
mind.
And well, and the cost of everything keeps going up. And the return from these shows doesn't go up. I mean, we've tried to measure over and over and over, can we ever show a financial benefit from being at any of these shows? And the answer is no. It's always a cost. It's never a revenue generator. And even if it does generate revenue, it doesn't generate enough to cover your cost. We can't even break even on a truck show.
Well, you know what? It was probably what caused the demise. Now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, it was probably the brokers and the recruiters.
Well, it had to be. Everything's their fault.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that tongue in cheek.
Of course.
But yeah.
Yeah, of course. But everything's their fault. So we might as well blame this one on them too.
Yep. But I really do. I blame the promoters that they didn't rein everybody in.
Yeah, it did.
Because the promoter didn't make extra money on that.
Only because the booth size itself kept getting bigger. And I just heard this week on Tuesday that there will be no West Wing this year at Louisville.
I could see that.
Yeah. And the reason we know that is years ago, we went to the truck show and we said, hey, look, we have all these partner companies that we work with together, and we have a lot in common. We're very owner operator focused. We're very efficiency focused. Companies like Pittsburgh Power and Fleet Air Filter and Air Tabs and MD Alignment. And we were partnering with all those companies. And I had this idea, what if they would let us build our own show within the show? And the first year we did it, we actually kind of had our area.
I remember that.
Yeah, we were all in the same area. And we kind of had it walled off a little bit. So you kind of had to come into our area. And then over the years, the walls kind of went down and we lost a couple of the partner companies. But we still, just up until this year, had that same spot there in the corner of that West Wing where Pittsburgh Power always is and MD Alignment. And now they're closing down the West Wing, so I think they're moving to the south.
I believe this last year when I was looking around, which is where I always ended up being most of my time with what I do with Freightliner in Detroit. this. I don't think they're using half of that south wing anymore. Maybe 3/4 of it.
Well, that's the other
They
thing
put up that partition wall. You really don't notice it, but there's a whole lot of ground to be had
there
out beyond that.
there never used to be a partition wall in that. That's what is deceiving. And that's the same thing that happened at Dallas, if you remember.
Oh yeah.
You realized, wait a minute, this is the same room we're always in, but why does it feel like it keeps getting smaller? And it did. Every year, the dividing wall went up in a different place, and it kept getting smaller and smaller.
The one I never did was Vegas. Well, there's several I never did. Vegas, Baltimore, when they had theirs.
Yeah, no, that was the New England Truck Show, and it would alternate because I used to go to that one. It would be Baltimore one year and Boston the next. And then they'd go back and forth between the two. It was actually the New England Truck Show. That was a weird one. I kind of liked that one, other than the fact that I don't like going up into New England a lot. But it was a nice show because it had a really, really local feel. That wasn't a nationwide
I like to go to New
show.
England,
Yeah,
just not to work.
Well, just all the traffic and flying in was always a hassle.
No, that's what I mean. Get away from that into the backwoods of Vermont
I
and
love that.
Maine and
I love that. We the first big trip we ever took when we went full time in the RV was we went and spent a month in New Hampshire during the fall. I mean, we timed it for peak foliage season. It was spectacular. Yeah. So
and the Berkshires, all that up through there and through New York, the Finger Lakes, and that's just beautiful country.
It is. You weren't missing anything in Vegas.
The Boston show had to be that had to be about as bad as Atlanta to get into.
Oh, it was awful. It was so bad I wouldn't even fly into Boston.
And Vegas.
Right. Yeah, Vegas. So Vegas was a very small show. And when the last time I did Vegas, it was myself and one other person. That was all. It didn't justify anything more than that. We had a small booth, and I was able to get everything I needed to set up our booth on a hand truck. So I pull into the parking lot in the front of the building, and it's the day before the show and setup is going on. And I load everything on my hand truck, and I'm wheeling it in the front door, and they stopped me. And they said, "You can't come in here." And I said, "Well, no, I'm a vendor." And I could look through the door and I could see my booth. I saw it. I'm like, "Oh, no, there's my booth right there. I can see my name tag on it." I said, "I'm a vendor." And they said, if you can't carry it in your arms, you can't bring it in this door." And I said, "All right.
I know the story.
I'm going to go. I'm going to go back to my car. And I'm going to start carrying boxes in one at a time then." And "Oh, no, we're not going to let you do that either." So now I got to drive all the way around the building in Las Vegas rush hour traffic, and you have to go back out onto the highways to get to the other side. It took me an hour and a half to get back to the docks where now I could pay them to carry my stuff in. What did you pay them? Quite a bit. Yeah. So now I'm standing at my booth waiting for them to bring me my stuff, where had they just let me walk through that door and go 30 feet to my booth, I would have been done an hour ago. Now I'm waiting for them to bring my stuff. And I'm watching this guy walk around with a clipboard, and he's inspecting all these booths, and people aren't there. And he's looking at things, and I see him write something up and leave it on the desk. So he leaves and he's doing his thing, and I walk over there and I looked at it. He wrote them basically a ticket and fined them because one of their, whatever it was, I don't remember, a light or something they had to plug in, this is not a joke, did not have a UL tag on the cord. You know, the little underwriter's laboratory tag that says this device is safe or whatever that. They got a ticket because one of their plug-in devices didn't have that on the cord. Henry, did I lose you? Or
no, I had to mute because I'm at a show and somebody came up to talk to me, and I said, "I'll talk to you later." It's somebody I knew. It wasn't business-wise, but which I may have to do during this because I'm working a show.
Of course.
But You would have laughed on show stories that way. I'm at Dallas, and I'm bringing in the truck and the trailer,
Mm-hmm.
and the trailer's empty. And all those smaller booths of people that I know, a bunch of them found out I was going in the building with an empty trailer. Well, of course, a whole lot of stuff went into the back of that trailer. And when it got in on the show floor, the back door swung open and it was like a Trojan horse. They were not pleased. Because it was a legal move and it completely got around their dock.
Yeah.
But I think there was like, I lost track of how many people. I should have been charging for it, because then that became the joke that when I came there, Henry's bootlegging. But
yeah,
when those back doors swung open,
yeah,
chairs and tables and
of
things
course.
started flying out of the back, and they're like, "What happened here?" Yeah, got around it.
Yep. All right.
But yeah, they wanted like just to bring you a box. It was like $40 to carry a box over to you. I mean, a small box.
It's insane. Yeah,
Nuts.
It really is. We have a couple calls. We're going to get to them here in a minute. Something I was getting ready to talk about today, just for the fun of it, because I didn't know who was going to be here with me this morning. And I'm tired of talking about industry news because there's nothing exciting going on in trucking right now. Really, really tired about talking about or thinking about politics, but that's all that's in the news anymore. So I was going to talk about the show Alone. It's one of the show itself is not all that exciting, or it's very interesting to me because of what I do with nutrition. And I really promote what we consider a hunter-gatherer diet. And it's interesting to watch the show because it is a real example of why we are supposed to eat the way we are supposed to eat. And this argument about, veganism being so good for the people and the animals and the planet is absolutely not true. It would be a disaster for all three. If the world turned into vegans, we would probably destroy the world. It would be that bad. And this show, you see it, because these people have to go out in the woods and live by themselves. And the whole point is, who makes it the longest. At some point, people tap out, and whoever makes it the longest wins $500,000. So the other crazy thing
Right.
is, when they say they're alone, they're really alone. They have to do all their own filming, or you wouldn't have a TV show. So they have like 40 pounds worth of camera equipment, and they are responsible for filming all their own stuff as they're doing it, which is kind of crazy. You're out there trying to survive, and this event, they are 125 miles into the Arctic Circle, and it's now wintertime. So it's going to get really rough. I think they're down to 4 or 5 people now, and they've been out there for 32 days, I think. But it is crazy to watch, and they've got a guy on there this year that his skills are incredible. You should see the compound this guy has built. What he can build out of logs with nothing but a handsaw and a hatchet, just incredible stuff. And he killed a moose. So food is always the biggest
I heard
issue by
something
far.
about this somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah,
He's having a hard time storing enough his food. Yeah.
That's the big thing. Now he kills a moose. You have 400 pounds of meat, just meat off the bone. He's got somewhere between 400 and 500 pounds of meat, but everything else wants it.
Well,
The bears, the wolves, the pine martens, the mice, everything tries to get in to the food. So now it's a full-time job just trying to protect it. So this guy built a meat locker and then lined it with the hide from the moose. He skinned the entire moose. It's just incredible to watch this guy. He also came up with another really good idea. He's obviously really good at fishing and hunting and building and all these things. He was catching all kinds of big pike, and he would set up these basically automatic fishing lines. he would find the right branch and he'd stick it in the ground and bend it and set up a kind of a trigger. And then he'd leave them there. He'd put 3 or 4 of them on the shoreline and he'd leave them. And when a fish would hit it, it would trip the trigger. The branch would spring up and catch the fish. And he comes back every day and there's these giant pike.
Like a snare.
Yeah, like 40-inch pike this guy was catching. His problem was, again, it's a lot of work to prepare and preserve those fish. You got to gut them and clean them and smoke them and then try to put them away. So he came up with another great idea. He would take and run a wire through the mouth and out the gill and tie them like on a leash to the shore, and then he'd put them back in the water and let them swim around until he needed them. And then when he wanted another fish,
not nearly as big a problem as if he didn't have food, though.
Oh, absolutely. That's the thing. He has almost everybody else is starving. And it's day to day. They're just hoping to get one more squirrel, one more grouse, one more fish. This guy is loaded with food. He's got all this moose meat. He's catching 2 or 3 big pike every day. But he was losing the pike. And he came up with this idea. I'll just put him on a leash and let him swim around till I need one.
Right.
All right.
Right.
We should.
So I almost was just going to jump off when you said you wanted to do the show alone. I didn't understand where you were going when you first did that.
Now I get it.
But on a subject you would like this, I did something unusual this week, Kevin.
What's that?
I ran all the way from Laredo all the way up here to Waupun because I had time, and I did not set the cruise above 62.
Wow.
And I had a light load, and it was yielding stuff out, during the day, for long periods of time of right at just shy of 14 and stuff like that. So, but
all right.
It wasn't nothing I'm going to publicize big because I was light.
Well,
I had a light load on, but
you're better off not making any post about that at all because you know exactly what will happen. Well, I could get that kind of mileage too if I was light and could go. No, you wouldn't. So yeah. That's what I feel like telling those people every time. No, you wouldn't. I can promise it.
Well, yeah, and when I was heavy, the first 100 miles of it, I was heavy. I was 77 something, not overweight by no means, but pulled off a 10 plus. I forget what it is. Yeah. I'm not sitting in front of my numbers, but it was like 10.3, 10.4.
Yeah. All right.
So,
let's.
To all the people that think I always run fast, I don't. I run as fast as I need to get the job done that day.
We've tried to get across,
and I enjoyed
it. People think that I only tell people to drive slow. That's not true. We got to the point where we tried to get people to understand the relationship between the rate on the load, the price of fuel, and the time. And it's hard to get people to understand that all of those things are a factor. I can say I do not have a problem with somebody driving 75 miles an hour under the right conditions.
Right.
But then there are times
Absolutely.
where I'm dyslexic and you shouldn't be driving 75. You should be driving 57. And there's a reason, and it makes sense. We don't tell people to drive slow just to drive slow. We don't tell people to drive slow just to get the maximum fuel mileage on every trip. It's a balance. And if you understand that balance, you can maximize
It's
profit.
The maximum profitability.
That's it right there. It's profitability. Here's the reason all these boneheads push back against this. None of them know what their profit is. They don't know how to calculate it. They don't have an accounting system. I've talked to these guys over and over and over. And if they're screaming about, oh, I can't believe you spent so much time on expenses, it tells me they don't know their profit. Because once you understand your profit, you will spend most of your time working on expenses. Because that's where all the opportunities are.
Right.
There's maybe 3 good strategies for increasing revenue. Maybe 3. good ones. So once you've worked on those and you now know how to kind of maximize your revenue, well, then now what? Well, there's about 300 ways to lower your expenses.
Well, if that's good enough, you just get a hood.
You know, one of the things I was thinking about today, I was looking for like interesting pictures of trucks to post and talk about because I always get a really good response. One of my best posts ever was when I made a comment about the Super Truck 2 and put a picture up there. I mean, the thing almost went viral. The other day, I posted a picture of a 1950 something international bulldozer. And I made the comment, I put the picture up, made the comment, somebody talked me out of it. That post went viral. I have no idea why. So I'm thinking, okay, people like posts with pictures of equipment in it. And the one I got to go try to find again, and so far I haven't had a whole lot of luck. I know we have these pictures somewhere though. One year, and this was at Louisville, we worked with a company and took a W9 and made it aerodynamic. It was a big, big project. We were working with a company that makes aftermarket hoods, fiberglass hoods. So they're a full-blown fiberglass shop and they can fabricate whatever they want. And we
Kevin,
yeah.
they are parked right in front of my hood, the people you're talking about.
No way. Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Really?
Don't tell them I said hi because there was not a good ending to that story, but I don't know whatever happened. The whole thing just kind of fell apart for some reason. Bruce knew those guys really well. David Counts from Fleet Air Filter flew up there a bunch of times. We did all kinds of aerodynamic testing. It was a great project. And then for some reason, they just stopped talking to all of us. And nobody ever knew why. We never understood what happened with the whole relationship. They just stopped talking to all of us. So I don't know. We just moved on.
Well,
But the truck they built was fantastic. And they built it. I mean, they did all of the work on the truck itself. We were there kind of advising and coming up with ideas, but they did the work. The truck was absolutely beautiful when it was done. It was called Slick. And the aerodynamic improvements were actually pretty big, but you knew it was a W9, but you looked at it and thought, what did they do? I mean, it was just, like I said, I'd love to find the pictures of it again.
I just sent you pictures of the one they got sitting right in front of my hood.
Okay. Let me see. I don't think I got it yet. Did you text them to me?
Yeah, I texted it on our group chat.
Okay. It's not coming through yet. We'll see.
In fact, they were the last people I talked to before I got on the air.
Is that right? Yeah, like I said, it was just
because they saw me walking here and they said, we should have given you a ride. And I said, no, I needed to walk anyway.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, like I said, we had a great
relationship.
And then we were all having fun with the project, and then everything just fell apart, and I never knew why. So
it's funny how things like that go.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, we're going to get to some phone calls because they're starting to pile up on us, and that kind of is the point of the show. So we're going to get started in Utah today. Tom, welcome to the program.
Yeah, good morning, Kevin. Hey, it's not fuel related, but I found it interesting. My brother's girlfriend works in San Antonio, Texas, at a pre-K. And so this is the first load of COVID lockdown babies, the 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds that she got in this new class. She's been doing this for years. And so, you always have your one kid or whatever. Sometimes you don't even have him. That's a problem, him or her.
Right.
But she says this group here is off the hook. New level of dysfunction.
Really?
And one kid just ran in and just started tearing things off the wall. Another kid holding its head and just screaming. These are the kids that we vaccinated and made wear masks, So God only, and then she thought, well, it was an anomaly, so she walked out of her class, I guess, at lunchtime or a little break time or whatever, to have a little conference with the other teachers. And she looked at the other teachers, and she could just tell by the look on their face. She said it was like a PTSD shock,
Oh
just
boy.
like the unbelievable, the shock that you see on people's face.
Yeah.
And she asked, "Is this normal?" And
Well,
she could. Every teacher said, "Oh my, this is not
so
right."
let's tie
Something, you know
this
what I
into
mean?
current events. I wasn't going to talk about politics today, but this is current events. So, how much evidence is out there now that there is something drastically wrong with that shot? It's everywhere. We have evidence from around the world. We have evidence like this. We have people still dying suddenly.
It's everywhere but mainstream media. It's
Exactly.
everywhere but mainstream media.
But let's think about this. Not only are they just ignoring all the evidence that's out there, but you would hope that they would at least try to back away from it quietly, but they're not. Do you realize the current candidate for vice president for the Democrats in his state is pushing a reward? We'll give you $200 if you get your 2 to 5-year-old vaccinated. That's a program in Minnesota.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That should be criminal.
Yeah, that's a
That should be
program right
criminal.
now in Minnesota.
Right
2 to
now.
5-year-olds. 2 to
Wow,
5-year-olds
and
were
that's so
not dying from COVID
Yeah.
at the
Well,
peak of
what are they
this.
trying to? What are they try? What are they truly trying to accomplish with a program like that? Because you're going to get mostly inner city blacks that take you up on that program.
Oh, you can't
Is
say
this
that, Tom.
a
That's
is this a
racist.
eugenics?
You
You can't say that, but it's the fact.
Yeah.
And is this just another eugenics round? Go around or something?
This is a
Th-
disaster
That's not
for
right, man.
this is a disaster for poor people.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. My brother called he called to get life insurance, and so the guy, he's in Texas, and so the guy asked him a couple questions. How's your health? He said, well, the correlation, causation, I'm not sure, but I got the vaccination, I got the booster shot. Then 3 months later, I got melanoma and a bunch of not a bunch, but then I got skin cancers in different areas, and they're taken care of now. He eats right. I can't believe he got the vaccination. Whatever.
Yeah, I know.
And the guy stopped him and said, he said, I'm only going to tell you this because you're calling from San Antonio. The guy was in. He's a nationwide guy, and he was in Houston. He said, to be honest with you, he says, I'm hearing this more often than I'm not hearing it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I mean. The evidence now, this is no longer a conspiracy theory. It never was, but that was pushed for so long. There is so much evidence around the world, across the board, that it's amazing to me that they're still able to push programs like this. It's absolutely criminal. And I have a feeling we're in for another round of something, disease X or monkeypox or something's coming.
So monkeypox, well, Alex Jones says it's going to be the bird flu or the monkeypox,
exactly.
and Alex Jones, take it with a grain of salt. But they've got something up their sleeve to do this vote by mail thing again because it worked last time. If it isn't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, something's going on.
Yeah, something's going to happen. All right, I just thought I would share that new little finding, about the kindergartners, because it's not gonna end. It doesn't sound like.
I saw a post this morning and I didn't have time to read it. It was just as I was coming on the air, so I just glanced at it. And it's from a fairly reliable source, a controversial source, like most of the good information seems to come from. but I was a little shocked that they actually posted this one. I assume they have some pretty significant proof, because they're not one of those accounts that just throws everything against the wall. Usually, if they've posted it, there's at least some good reason to believe it could be true. And when I read it, I was shocked, and I've been right in the middle of this since day one, and to shock me right now is a little difficult. But they are actually claiming they have proof. Have you seen the autopsy pictures where they take out all these crazy long string like?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
that's
Yes.
been documented over and over and over. And
Yeah.
this account is claiming that they've now figured out what that is. And this sounds like science fiction, but they're claiming it in the shot are nanobots, and they come
Yes.
together to form these long string like blood clots. Nanobots.
Yeah, I've heard that too, and I don't know. I don't know. If you could just get your hands on some of the original COVID-19 strains, would be pretty much what they gave Biden him after his debate debacle. I'm pretty sure they were holding on some of that old good COVID-19
Yeah.
and whacked him. That's why he was sick for a while. But yeah, I with all the companies that made that, Moderna and Pfizer and J&J and all the rest of them, who put what in who
Right.
put what when, and you know what I mean. It's got probably all gone now. It's impossible to find out, but
Yeah, who knows?
this is where we need that JFK Jr. in charge of FDA and looking this stuff up. This is
that would be a
yeah.
great
And
job
don't
for him.
think they said this. They say this next round of virus is going to be 25% deadly, because apparently we didn't get the message last time. And I don't put it past them, Kevin. I really
No,
don't.
I don't either. I am. The
So-
longer this goes,
So Kevin,
go ahead, Henry.
I got a weird question on this thought to throw out in this conversation.
All right.
What do you call a conspiracy theory after it's found to be true?
Every time, Henry, when it's true over and over again, right? At what point does it not become a theory, or become,
I've seen this, quoted a couple different ways. The truth today was a conspiracy theory last month. I mean, that's how fast we seem to debunk some of this stuff, but it never matters. It never seems to matter, no matter how many of these things you prove are not conspiracy theories. They're really the truth. It never seems to matter, for one reason and one reason only: the media.
the media. And then that's what we back in the
Hey.
40s, when they started to do the monopoly thing and break these big companies up. When are we going to go and break? Now Disney owns ABC, so you can't really buy Disney and change their news network, because you can't afford to. But at what point does the government need to? And I hate government, but do they need to go on there and make the NBC, CBS, ABC, just the news part, a separate entity where people can actually bid for it and try to buy it and change things?
Yeah, that would be interesting, because I would venture
Let's
to
talk
say.
about
Go ahead.
Let's talk about freight. What I'm sitting in Salt Lake City since yesterday afternoon. A lot of trucks in the truck stop here. What is the average van rate right now? This is getting out of hand, and I've been doing a little bit more sitting than usual. I thought we were sort of, rates weren't really high, but at least they were consistent. I'm not finding that.
that seems to be falling apart. Although every day I feel like I'm living in clown world sometimes. I read 10 articles that predict freight is getting stronger and everybody's optimistic. And then I read 10 articles that say the economy is about to crash and we're all going to starve. So it's hard to figure out exactly what's happening.
I mean, our guys are pulling off the load boards, and he sent me one from Salt Lake to Los Angeles at 80 cents a mile, and he said that's what he's finding. That was, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
these guys do run from this route from LA up
Right.
here to Salt Lake and make a few dollars on it. But 80 cents.
No, you can't make any money at all on
beer
that
at
route at that
beer
rate.
out of Denver.
Yeah, you might as well just stay home. I mean, really, that's
Yeah, beer out of Denver is paying $1. You know,
right.
But they've always done that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I wonder what anybody else that calls in. What are they finding out?
I am getting the feeling that on the street right now, freight is not doing well.
No, I think people are afraid. I'm frankly afraid of what's going to happen, recession, and you know, if you look back at that, you know, the Japanese thing we talked about yesterday, this can become a big problem, and it could happen quick. You know what I mean? It's sort of, we've been on the edge of a recession. We thought we were a recession for what, for the last 7-8 years.
Yeah.
But at what you know, there's a point where the bubble's going to have to burst.
What happened on Monday? And how did we? This is why there's just no clear patterns. Nothing makes sense. Monday, at one point, was the absolute worst day the NASDAQ has ever had. Intraday, they were down over 1,000 points. That has never, ever happened to the NASDAQ at any point, not during intraday, not a close. It was the worst day ever for the NASDAQ. The Dow everything got hit hard. And we're right back to where we were. We've made up all those. What was that? What was that weird anomaly on Monday that almost everything looked like it was going to crash bad? It was looking like 08 again. And then all of a sudden we recover from it. And
that was what's his name? The big, huge investor, the old guy in Nebraska. What's his name?
Yeah.
Warren Buffett.
Yeah, Buffett. Berkshire Hathaway.
Berkshire Hathaway.
Yeah.
Buffett sold a ton of Apple
I know.
stock, and I think that started it off. But my theory is that
you bring up a good point. Not only did they sell a ton of Apple stock, did you see how much cash Berkshire Hathaway is sitting on?
Yeah.
Like,
and what? Yeah.
I don't even know if I can remember the number. It's so goofy. It's like $260 some billion.
Yeah. It's like
cash.
Yeah. I was going to say yeah. And I have a feeling that companies like Vanguard and BlackRock, they're coming in to sort of clean the mess up a little bit, to make sure that the stock market doesn't crash, because if it does, that puts the Democrats out.
Oh, they are totally,
you know what I mean?
done. If that is the one thing that could completely turn the tide on the election and make it almost impossible for the Democrats win. If the economy crashes, they're toast.
Yeah, and they know it, and so everybody that can help is jumping in and helping when they can, and so they dodged the bullet maybe on this one, but ask yourself, granted, Berkshire Hathaway and Buffett made a ton of money with that Apple stock, and it is pretty high, and it wasn't the only stock that he sold, but why is he selling so much at one time? What does he know?
Right. Why is he sitting on so much cash? There's only one reason to do that.
Because he knows it's going to crash.
That's the only reason.
He's going to come clean the pieces up.
Right. They are an investment company. That's what they do. They invest money. So when they stop investing money and they start moving to a cash position, you've got to pay attention.
Do you know that he owns Pilot Plan, Jay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that was a good choice, but
The only other thing it could be for, Kevin, is if they're getting ready to spend it on something else.
Yeah. Then you really start to wonder, what's that?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is just goofy. But if anybody else is using the load board and running into the same thing, call in and
We'll
let us know what's going on out here,
yeah,
man.
we'll-
Because this sitting on my ass, I can sit on my ass at home and do the honeydews. I don't need to sit
oh,
in
yeah,
a
no
truck in
doubt.
Salt
Well,
Lake
we'll
City.
maybe we'll get some insight on Monday. We haven't heard from Brent in about 3 weeks, so maybe we'll get some insight.
Yeah, I was hoping he might be on today. Cool. All right. Well, Kevin, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you soon. Let's go to Denver. Sandro, welcome to the program.
Hey, Kevin, how are you?
Doing good. What's on your mind today?
Called you last week about a truck that I'm planning to purchase. You told me to run some reports, rig dig, specs to see what kind of transmission the truck has,
Okay.
and also the oil sample.
Got
So,
it. Okay.
cool.
So I've got some reports here. It said it was an oil sample. I see we've got an ECM report. There's an ECM report.
Yes.
That's I don't see an oil sample here though. Did you send the oil sample over?
Yeah, I sent it.
Let me try
probably.
Yeah, I've got like a 3-page document here, but it's not an oil sample. It's the spec. So we can start on this, try to figure out where the oil sample might be. So it's a DD13. Henry, do you know on the DT12? I don't know the model numbers on this, so this is kind of meaningless to me.
I don't know them that way, but I know what gear ratios they put them
actually,
with. So what gear ratios it got?
Actually, it's not even giving us the model number of the transmission. That's just a software version.
I called Freightliner and they gave me the build specs, and the gear ratio is 279, and the transmission is the DT12 with the overdrive.
Yeah, 0.78.
Okay, so it's a
is
0.78
the overdrive ratio.
So Henry, DD13 with this drive line sounds pretty decent to me.
What's the wheelbase?
Wheelbase, I think it's. I remember they telling me about 240 or 230.
Do you happen to know, you did the rig dig, who owned this truck before?
Yes, it shows a company in Texas, Genox, Genox.
The reason I'm asking is these are pretty decent specs. They do have the. I mean, it's turned down to 72 miles an hour, and we know if the truck will run 72, the driver's going to do 72 most of the time. The fuel mileage lifetime's not all that impressive, 7.2. So I'm wondering, were they an open deck? Was there, what kind of freight did they pull? It's not that I would eliminate a truck for that fuel mileage on a report, but I'm not very excited about it.
Genox is tanker, isn't it?
Is it? I'm not sure. That doesn't sound familiar to me.
I think it's some sort of chemical company.
It's a mid roof. Yeah, it's a flat roof. I know that.
Now, what are you going to use this truck for?
Hauling cars.
Okay.
I'm hauling open car hauler.
Okay, so the mid roof's no big deal
local
for you
and regional,
then, right? Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, it don't sound like bad specs.
No, it's not. It's so if everything else checks out on this truck and there's no other reason not to buy this, I'm not horribly concerned about that fuel mileage, but a little bit. I mean, I would expect a better number, but in a fleet, you never can.
What's the idle time?
I haven't found that yet. Total here it is. Total idle hours. Over 30.
How about percentage?
I know. I'm trying to find the percentage because that's what I always use, and I'm not finding it yet.
Upper right-hand corner.
This is a J Pro report. I've never really seen one
Oh,
like this. I know. That's why I'm having a hard time finding anything on it.
Yeah.
I don't see idle time as a percentage at all.
because
It's
Idle
just
time, it shows
it amazes
hours.
me.
It's like
total hours is
it
what
shows.
they're showing. Well, we could do this. Total engine runtime is 15,000 hours, and total idle is 3,600. What is that's a fairly high percentage. I mean, it's not anywhere near
That's what I was thinking.
50%, but it's certainly not under 10. It's a 20-some percent is what it is. It's somewhere between 20 and 30%. That's pretty high idle time.
So Kevin, what I look at when I see these trucks, because I get to go out to some of these fleets, and I'm just amazed at where their fuel mileage is with specs that are almost identical to what Nussbaum has, who has
Right.
over 100 of their trucks in their 500 truck fleet above 10.
Exactly. That's
And they're well into the nines for the whole fleet, right? And they'll be in the low sevens, and I'm like, where were you before? Well, they were in the fours and fives before. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So, like I said, if
Yeah, I was.
this truck checks out everything else, then I wouldn't be overly concerned about that fuel mileage, because I don't see why, in the right operation, driven right with some modifications, this should easily be a 9 mile per gallon truck.
Yeah.
not with a car
That's what
carrier,
I
though.
thought about it.
No, not so much with the car carrier.
Yeah,
Although,
not so much with the car.
how many cars are you going to have on?
7.
Oh, you will have
Kevin,
7.
Super
Okay.
heavy.
Okay.
Kevin, I'm going to interrupt you. I'll be here. Holler at me, though, because I got to go on mute. I got to get some stuff out for the show.
Got it. Go ahead. All right. So,
And
did we find the oil sample yet?
I sent it over another one for an email. Not sure if Lisa got it or not. But I
Okay.
just sent it
I think
again.
I'm checking with her
And
now. Oh, it's in.
I
What do you mean it's?
I have a question, Kevin, about the engines. I know I'm pretty familiar with the D15. Not too familiar with the D13. It's any major difference between those engines as far as
They're
like efficiency or?
very similar. Um, very similar to when we had the 11-liter Detroit, and then we had the 12.7. Those engines were almost identical. These are pretty darn similar. It's really just the
Okay.
size. I really like the 13, and for what you're doing, I think it's
Right.
ideal.
Right. Yeah, the 13 reminds me of the 12.7. I have
Right.
12.7 in the past.
Right.
Car haulers, like 10 car haulers with a 13 speed. Of course, a few efficiencies on those I remember it was like, that was 15 years ago, but it was, if I had 4.5 gallons, 5 gallons, 5 miles per gallon was great.
Yeah, absolutely right.
But
All right, so I've got your oil sample here. Do we know, because it doesn't tell me in this report, how many miles were on this oil?
No, we don't. I just asked them what I did that advised me last week is do not touch the oil. Do not do anything with the oil. I just want to sample the old oil so they don't have an idea.
So I'm trying. It's really hard when you don't know what the miles are. I can look for some clues. Right. So one of the clues I see here is iron is at 47. So it tells me it's not new oil. I mean, this sample is so clean that I almost thought it was brand new oil and somebody changed it. But then I'm looking, and we do have some wear metals in there. Not a lot, nothing to worry about. But it does tell us there are some miles on this oil, or we wouldn't see that. In fact, I could guess that there's probably at least 25,000 miles on this oil based on what I'm seeing.
Oh, wow.
Silicon's at 5. That only happens after we have some miles on it. Iron's at 47. Chromium's at 2. Aluminum's at 9. So the wear metals look like a very typical sample with 25,000 miles on it. The rest of the sample is absolutely clean. Like this is a 0 level on the report. There's nothing to report on this at all.
Okay. So as far as you can see, it's a good oil sample.
Absolutely. Like an excellent oil
Okay.
sample. Now, again, I'm assuming the miles, but there are some indicators there that it probably does have quite a few miles on that oil.
Okay, understood. Yeah. I was not the one who draw the oil. The truck is like 500 miles away, so I send the oil sample kit to them, and I asked them to, of course, send me a video about taking the oil and the truck. They sent it, I'm still gonna go. The truck. I'm in Denver. The truck is in Kansas. I call our local Freightliner there to do like a health check, like put in a dyno. Do you think it's necessary to do that, or what you saw as
I do like a dyno report. Have they given you a price what they're going to charge you for that?
$350. I think it's a fair price. I mean, I think it's even cheaper to get it checked out.
I would do it. Ask them also while it's on the dyno that they do a manometer test.
Manometer, okay.
It's also called a crankcase pressure test. And what we're looking for is any possible wear in the cylinders. I don't think you're going to find any. I'm almost positive you won't. But if we're putting it, and I would put it on the dyno for $350. That would be worth it for me.
Okay.
For it just,
right.
Based on what I'm seeing, the rig dig report is really clean. The specs are really good. The oil sample looks great. I'm expecting a very good dyno report and no blow by. But for $350 or $500, let's do it.
It's worth it, right. The only other thing that I saw on a J Pro report that's they provided to me is there's a fault code that like fuel rail pressure too low. I went on Google, kind of look at it, and they say anything between fuel filters to fuel pump or module. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I can tell you this, that we have not seen a single fuel pump issue on these trucks. So I doubt very much that it's a fuel pump. The most likely cause of that is just a clogged fuel filter.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I had that issue with the Freightliner with the same thing.
Right.
Kind of similar situation, and I changed the oil filters, cleaned the whole system, and then it was clean and it was perfect again.
Yeah,
right.
that fault doesn't worry me at all.
Yeah, I'll definitely gonna do that. I really appreciate you looking at it. It's something that I'm gonna get used to with the oil sample.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm definitely gonna go do the dyno. And Kevin, I have just another subject that I want to bring it up.
Sure.
See if you ever heard about it, or it's something I heard a few times from other truck drivers, but it happened to a friend of mine. He hired a third-party dispatcher for his company. He's a small car hauler. And what happened is this dispatcher hired drivers and put under his company without his knowledge. And of course was not under his insurance. And end of the year, he went to an audit, and of course, everybody came up. You have 26 violations. You have like 9 drivers. I said, no, I'm the only driver.
So let me get this straight. Well, wait a minute. This is a friend of yours, right?
There's a friend of mine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did he have authority? He must have.
Yeah, his own authority.
So he has authority.
Yeah, he was his own authority.
Hires a dispatch company, which I am completely against. By the way, I've been against these things since they came out. I think this is a horrible idea for most people. And these companies have turned out to be problems like this. And now that company has all the information they need to pull the scam they just pulled.
Of course, yeah.
So what I'm assuming is they're running a bunch of trucks with no authority. And now claiming that they're running under your friend's authority.
Exactly.
Except your friend's not getting any of the revenue.
not at the revenue, and not only that, all those
But-
trucks that this dispatcher hired, they had no insurance. They actually were running without insurance.
Unbelievable. This
Unbelievable.
this is a new one.
Did you ever heard about this?
We have a lot of freight fraud going on, and I haven't really heard of this, although it doesn't surprise me, and this is a pretty easy one to pull off.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, if you know or not. Was that dispatch company
Mm-hmm.
based here in the U.S. even?
Yes, it was based in the U.S., actually, Orlando.
Okay.
Somewhere in the Central Florida. He's from Orlando, Florida. So I'm assuming that this dispatch company is in Orlando.
Well, I wouldn't assume that.
So-
Some of these dispatch companies are run in other countries.
That's true. Yeah, yeah. I heard that from other friends, but I thought it was impossible. No, people are not going to do that. But
Oh, no.
actually, what happened with my
This
friend?
is a big thing. A lot of these dispatch companies are run in other countries, and here's the problem with it. You can't prosecute them.
Yeah, that's his problem right now. I mean, well, the people are here. This dispatch company is here in the U.S., but what happened right now, until he fixed the problem, he put him out of business because he was not able to renew his insurance. There's so many violations. All the brokers that he had relationships, they already canceled their contract.
I'm sure.
Because
Everybody has to. Everybody has to run as far away from this disaster as they can, because there is a ton of liability here.
That's crazy. I
it
couldn't
is.
believe it. When I heard at the beginning of the year, I heard like 2 times, and it was not possible. But then
No,
it
it's a
happened
new
with my
one.
friend. He just called me last week. He was looking. He just kind of parked his truck, and he said, "I'm working for somebody else. I cannot run my company anymore."
Unbelievable.
And
I have been.
It's crazy.
I have been against this whole idea of using it. Here, most dispatch companies, and you can get all kinds of arguments about this, are basically acting like unlicensed brokers.
True.
So
Yeah.
and now we've
And
got
what would be enough-
basically an unlicensed broker putting freight on trucks with no authority and no insurance. It doesn't get much worse than that.
That's crazy. That's insane. And I was thinking about this, and how a small company, like I have my own authority for over 15 years.
Right.
I dispatch my own truck. You know, I'm the only
Exactly.
driver. You know, I had drivers in the past. Nowadays, I just want to have fun. I dispatch my own truck.
Right.
You know, I do my own thing by myself. But sometimes it's tough. You know, I have to stop the truck and look at the computer because most of the loads are during the day, and during the day I'm driving.
Another strategy I don't see used as often as I think it could be in your situation. I get it. When you have one truck and you're doing the driving and you're looking for loads and you're doing the paperwork, it's a lot. And you can miss out on good loads while you're driving because you can't be watching the board all the time. And so I understand why people might look to these dispatch companies, but it's a horrible idea. It just is. Here's a better idea.
Right.
Find a couple brokers and let them dispatch you. They'll do it. You build that relationship with the broker and let them become kind of your agent and dispatch. They'll do it.
Right. Yeah. Again, come back to relationship, right? Build relationship with
find a couple and say, look, guys,
I
I want to do what I do best, which is drive this truck and deliver vehicles. I want you to keep me busy.
Good. All right. Good deal. Yeah, definitely. I'll do that. Thanks for the advice.
Yep, absolutely.
Right. Great,
Thanks
Kevin.
for
That's all I have.
The heads up on that going on. That sucks. Hey, Henry, are you listening?
Yes.
Okay. The reason,
but not well enough because I'm setting up for the show.
Do you have a minute? Because I have the next call in the queue is a question for you. I could skip them and come back to it, but if you're ready, we'll take it.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Okay. All right, we're going to go to Indiana then. Jerry, welcome.
Hi, Kevin. Hi, Henry. I talked to you a couple of weeks ago about Freightliner trucks, and I have actually kind of looked at a couple anyway. One truck I found is a spec. Kind of looks like a Nussbaum truck. I mean, it's not a Nussbaum, I know that, but it's kind of like their specs. and I just wanted to bounce that off of you. It's a 2023 with a 455 Detroit at DT12 transmission, 216 rear end ratio, 229 wheelbase. Doesn't have the torque spec. Does have a 13.2 front axle. Got the electric APU. If I were to pull van freight all over the country getting with that truck, what would I expect for fuel mileage?
Boy, that's such a wide open. What was the wheelbase on it?
I know. 229. Yeah, I know that's a wide open question, but 65 miles an hour, I always say, no matter where I go, I set the cruise on 65, and that's it.
What I say, and it's pretty generic if you're going generic that way. With these, you can get 8 with your hand tied. To me, if you can't get north of 8, you got a problem, and it has a lot more room to move than that.
Oh, I was hoping for 9.
I'm just saying, when you ask a general question that way, you can do 8 with your arm tied behind your back.
My downside would be that I pull company trailers, and you never know what you're going to get. So there's no aerodynamics to the trailers at all, but, you know, I've worked pretty hard at fuel mileage. If I could get 9, even if I could get 9 from what I'm doing now, Henry, it's only fuel savings of only $18,000 a year. That ain't hardly worth across the street for, is it?
Yeah, it kind of is. I mean, yeah, does it have the potential to do 9? Yes.
Right. Okay.
Whenever somebody asks me to throw them a number, that's so wide open.
I realize that, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but it is a 6x4, not a 6x2. It just seems like I have so much trouble finding the 6x2 on the general market as a used truck. And these are pretty well spec'd and very well maintained trucks. They've got several on their listing for sale. So just sounded almost like a Nussbaum spec in a way, only a different fleet.
What color were they?
What's that?
What color were they?
Black.
I thought they were silver. There's another one that's up in there's another company that's up in the area of Nussbaum, and they're very much monkey see, monkey do.
Okay.
So that's why I was wondering, was theirs? I don't know. They have any black ones? They might, but the ones I remember, they were being silver. But
so what company was that?
Cox.
Oh yeah, I know them. Sure. Yeah, I know them quite well actually. Yep. So I
saw some of their trucks sitting up there. I saw some of their trucks sitting up at truck centers there in Morton, which is where Nussbaum gets theirs out of. And I said, wow, looks like they've fully adopted, and I refer to it as the Nussbaum spec, which wasn't much of a different spec than what I had previously. You said it was 229 on the wheelbase, or was that the previous guy? What was?
Yeah, 229.
That's longer, because I think Nussbaum's down to 223 or 221. I think, because they run a tight trailer.
And what's yours?
Too long, 229.
What's yours?
There's a story there. 229. It's too long. My last one was 223.
Okay. All right. Well, I just wanted to bounce out.
I wanted this one to be 221.
Okay.
But
well, why didn't they?
Because I got the liftable axle, and it. Okay. So one of the funny things with Freightliner, till everything's tested, they won't do it, right? So, and the way I drive the truck, it has to be like anybody can order it, right? Well, the batteries where they put it for the Park Smart battery, or now called the dual HVAC system, it wouldn't fit where it would. So then they had to put the batteries on the side rail on the side. Well, I only ran one fuel tank. I'm like, can't you put them up in there behind the skirt? No, because that's not where we offer them. So because of where they had to put the batteries is what got my wheelbase long.
And your batteries are behind the cab between the frame rails?
No, they would have been. They're on the side in the battery box that looks like it's something that would have been with a step on it, like you would have had on an old FLD or something like that.
Oh, okay. I forgot. looked at as many trucks I can remember. So, and the other question is the way that I know you've got the driver's lounge, but on a regular Freightliner without the driver's lounge, and if you open a side box, exactly how in the world are you ever supposed to store a broom handle? You don't have the full width area.
It's been a while since I've had them. So the partitions are removable, if I remember right.
Oh, okay.
It's been a while. So it's been a few years since I've been in one of them, but I think you can lift them out.
Okay. Well, I wonder.
And then if I was planning on being MacGyver, if they're not removable, it wouldn't take much of a hole saw to make it that the handle could go all the way across, would it?
Well, it wouldn't. You're right. I'm sure I'll figure out something, but it's just the stupid stuff like that I look at that and I use a broom pretty often when I'm pulling company trailers. I think I'm the only one in the company that owns a broom and the only one that sweeps the trailers. So I have to do it pretty often. So I just look at things like that. Now, where in the world am I going to put my broom handle?
Hey, Jerry,
which explains to you why they didn't make a partition for the partitions available for a broom handle, because you're the only one that's doing it.
Hey, Jerry.
There you go.
Let me save
All
you.
right.
Let me save you some time and trouble. Get yourself a battery.
Who's in trouble?
Get yourself a battery-powered leaf blower. You clean out that trailer in like 30 seconds.
Yes, but don't do it in the truck stop parking lot and blow your nails all over the place like I saw somebody doing not long ago.
See, that's a disadvantage. I always sweep it into a pile and then sweep it into a bag. And I've never figured out how you're going to get all that stuff blown around into a trash bag and not blow it out. I know it. I've seen leaf blowers operating, but I just ain't going to do that. It blows it all over, and then, I don't know. I ain't going to do that. I know exactly what you're saying, Kevin, but I ain't going to do that. So
that's all right. I've swept.
I was just at a place where they were where that's a regular habit, and I picked up close to 100 nails.
Oh, isn't that awful?
Yeah, you have to have a little common sense.
Yeah, I just wouldn't do that. Too many people.
You back up to the non-parking lot spot, onto the grass somewhere and blow it all out. It's much faster. Much faster.
Just clean up after yourself when you get
behind the trailers.
Hey, Jerry.
Yep.
I had to bring that up.
I don't care if you blow it out. Just clean it up.
Yeah, I had to bring that up because today is the efficiency day. I'm trying to help you be more efficient.
Oh, all right. Well, maybe I should do that then. But then I got to figure out where I'd put the leaf blower, and then I got to figure out how much charge the battery, and then the battery would be dead when I wanted to use it, and I wouldn't have it charged. No, I swear.
Speaking of
if you got that truck, you said it'll have an inverter where you can recharge your batteries. You'll be good.
You can, but
it does. It's got the inverter, so
I will throw in another factor here since we're talking about batteries now. I just watched a video in the busiest port in the world of a massive explosion on a container ship. Big one. Just happened this morning, I think. It's still under investigation. They think it was probably batteries, yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh, that ain't good. So
No, it's not.
Huh. Well, I'm sure I'll figure it out, but it's just the stupid little stuff like that. I look at a truck and I try to figure all this stuff out. I've looked at under the bunk on a Freightliner, and I have absolutely no comprehension whatsoever how I'd carry everything I've got in my truck here now. But I'm sure I'd figure it out. So
you'll figure it out.
After 18 years in the same truck, you kind of know where everything's at, and you know where to put it, and you just look at a different truck and what the hell am I going to do now? So no doubt I'll figure it out. So
here's the other
all right,
thing.
Henry, I'll keep you posted. I appreciate your time.
There you go.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Here's the other thing.
You know, Kevin, you talked about these batteries and the explosions, and I hear the stories about, electric and there's a fire or there's this or that. And it's funny, I watched this old movie. God, it's from like 1937 or so, but it's called Little Old New York, and it was the story about Robert Fulton, who came up with the idea of having a steamship. And everybody was like, why would you ever build a fire on a ship?
Yeah, I get it.
And it's an interesting movie because the cast of characters is Livingston, Cornelius Vanderbilt, and the barmaid that helped raise the money to fund the project. But you know, when you think about, when you hear all the excuses they were using why this steamship was a bad idea, it sounded like the conversations that are being had today.
No, I'll bet. No doubt. All right. Seems like I had another comment. Now I can't remember what it was. Maybe we'll just take a call instead. Let's go to South Carolina. Paul, good morning.
Howdy. I just had a brainwave. All
Okay.
these guys that have leaf blowers, they need to get battery powered vacuum cleaners instead of leaf blowers.
Maybe
Well,
we should.
there's a lot of leaf blowers. There is a lot that do both.
What? Well,
There you
wait a
go.
minute.
Just
Why
put
don't
the hose on the other way or something?
if we're thinking like this, why don't we just get a Roomba?
And
I think a Roomba would meet its match. I think that'd meet its match when it got a hold of the
Little
pieces of pallets. I always wanted to joke around with the shipper and tell them they're not finished unloading me because half their pallets are still
inside
broken
the
up on my
trailer.
floor.
Yeah. Yeah. We would need an industrial size Roomba, I guess.
So Tom was talking about freight or lack thereof.
Yeah.
So I went to Canton, Mississippi. Well, I took a week and a half off because there wasn't much happening. And then talked to the terminal manager over there, and she said, yeah, there's thousands of cars on the ground waiting to go. She said, just waiting for releases. Okay. So I go over there on Wednesday. I left home, get over there, and she said, I got 7 units for you. Okay, well, I got room for 1 or 2 more, depending on what you got. So I got another unit yesterday, but there's about 5,000 vehicles there ready to go, but they're having IT problems, which I think go back to that crash a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And they can't print paperwork and Moroni stickers.
Unbelievable. That's becoming a bigger and bigger problem. Really is.
So, isn't that crazy that you can't ship something because a computer won't run?
And it's not even your computer or your problem, and it's nothing you can control.
Well, yeah.
The automotive sector, the cars shippable, ready to go, it's still slower than normal, I'm thinking. So compared to previous years.
Everything seems a little slow to me right now in freight. I know I'm still reading positive. I read an article this morning, the broker survey, they expect a big uptick in freight. I'm not sure why they think that. I don't see the signs of that.
I have the answer for you on that, Kevin.
Okay.
Because it's down now, so it has to go up.
No, it doesn't.
That's where their theory came from.
I know that might be what they're thinking.
I know that, but you said where you said where their figuring came from.
Yeah,
it's down, so they're figuring it got to go the other way.
You are correct. That I'm sure that's what they're thinking, and they're thinking
Paul,
faulty.
Your story with the cars and the computers reminds me of a story way back. And this was towards the beginning of when everything got to be put on computers. But I worked at Grinnell Supply Sales, and we had to pull orders for the customers and load the trucks and everything. And we couldn't do nothing because the computers were down.
Yep.
Simple me, I said to him, how about if we just pull the orders and you enter them in the computer later? Because the whole warehouse was down, and we know how to pull an order. And that's what we ended up doing. At the end of the night, they put in the... After they got the computer running, they put the orders in. Imagine that.
Yeah, well, I'm not real techno savvy. I type with one finger, and the other day I had to write out a reasonably long email, and it's like, God, it's going to take me ages. And it's like, I can write legibly and quicker than I can type, so I wrote it out on a piece of paper and screenshot it and emailed it.
You combine both.
Oh, there you
Yeah,
go.
you got to be careful if you use if you
yeah.
do voice to text
Yeah.
on it, because sometimes it heard something you didn't say.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, I don't do that because it can't pick up on my accent and all sorts of crazy shit comes out. It's like, I
Oh
didn't
yeah.
say that. Yeah. So,
Uh,
so I had a substantial delay yesterday in Alabama. I-20, I'm trucking along, and I hadn't even looked at Google Maps or anything, so my own fault, I suppose. Well, then it says advance warning, all lanes blocked, exit 52, all vehicles. Well, I come up to exit 45, and it's like, oh, we're stopped. So then I look, and it's like, oh crap! And then a guy in a day cab truck, he pulled up beside me, and he runs between Birmingham and Jackson, Mississippi. And he said, oh, there was a bad wreck this morning about 6 or 7 hours ago, and apparently it was some sort of I don't know, it was a fuel tanker or other hazmat, but it was a tanker and versus a car, and apparently there was a big explosion. So I got off at exit 45, and about 20 miles later, I got back on at exit 64, but that was nearly 3 hours later. So, and now I'm headed to South Carolina. I just seen the sign, road flooded, all lanes blocked. So I guess I'm going to have some more delay time today. So joys of trucking. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. All right. Good stuff, Paul. Thanks for the call. We're going to move along and get to some more. Before we do, I always love it when people try to make a point on social media and then get something so wrong that they kind of lose all credibility. Listen to this one, Henry. Most people aren't going to get this until I give you the correct answer, but if you're going to post stuff like this, you should get it right. So the picture, it's actually a short video of this sorority somewhere, some college, some big sorority. There's a lot of women in this picture. They're all very pale, let's say. And the post is, and I'm sure it's about all this, inclusivity, and we can't have a sorority that everybody's pale or whatever their point is on this. But it's the quote they put up there says, "Not one drop of melatonin in the whole sorority." Boy, I bet they're having a hard time sleeping. What he meant was melanin, not melatonin. Melatonin helps you sleep.
All right.
Melanin is what creates color
Right.
in your skin. So you should probably at least get the right word. Let's
Well, the thought was right.
yeah. Let's go to Texas. Ilya, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Kevin. How's it going?
Good. What's on your mind today?
I was calling about the conversation you guys had about the dispatch companies before.
Yeah.
Before trucking for like about a year, a little bit over, I worked at Yelp in sales, like the restaurant review company.
Yeah.
And like I figured out their whole like the whole sales thing, because they were pretty aggressive with it, which is one of the reasons I left there.
Right.
Like it was all like words and learning how to arrange words and leave certain words out and put certain words in, So when these dispatch companies call me, which is like, I don't know, 100 times a day, I do the same kind of thing with them. Like I speak to all of them, and I started doing this thing, which turned out to be kind of fun. They'll ask you, what's your weekly gross? Because they try to say they'll get you a higher weekly gross.
Right.
And I'll say, okay, I'll tell you my weekly So I'll be like, I'll tell you my weekly gross if you tell me what your paycheck is, because it's a similar kind of thing.
Right.
And they won't understand for a little bit, but eventually I'll get it out of all of them that their paycheck is about $200 to $300 a week. And I'll be like, where are you based out of that? You live off of that.
Exactly.
So they'll say like the city wherever their phone number is, and I'll say you can't live off of that in there,
Right.
like over there. And turns out they're all from like some other country, who knows where.
That was why the first question I asked this person was, is the dispatch company here in the States? Because I doubt it is. Henry, you were busy setting up during this call. But I had a call. It wasn't him. It was a friend. But his friend had one truck and had hired a dispatch company to dispatch him and keep him busy. And then he comes to find out
Huh.
this dispatch company. Did he give us a number? For some reason, like 20 something is sticking in my head. This dispatch company was
Yeah,
moving
same.
freight with 20 some other trucks that had no authority and no insurance, and he was running them under this guy's authority.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah, what could go wrong there?
and all the brokers that he had built relationships with found out and dropped him. And I would too. You have to. You got to get as far away from that as you can. There is so much liability there.
Yeah, that was a train wreck waiting to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like
It
it's
sounded
still
like
happening
he
too.
only found out because he couldn't.
Wow.
Uh-oh. Ilya, we were losing you there. Are you back?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Say that again.
No, I said it sounded like the guy only found out because he couldn't renew his insurance because all those people had so many violations that came on his record.
That's right. That's how he found out. He went to renew his insurance and he couldn't. So now the story was he had to park his truck and he's out driving for somebody else.
Yep.
All right. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. That's
there's all sorts of
the freight scams and freight fraud are just, it's every day I hear something new. You know, there was a time when somebody said freight fraud, you kind of knew what was going on. It was kind of a double broker thing most of the time. Now that whole word phrase freight fraud, you have to clearly define what we're talking about. There's so many different scams anymore. Here's something I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something about this. When you apply for authority, I understand that those are public documents. I get it. I'm not sure why they really need to be, but why do you have to expose your phone number and email? Because we know what happens. Everybody gets, 10,000 sales calls from insurance companies and BOC3 providers and brokerage companies. And why do we have to give out that information? That's just wrong.
Well, that was my comment that had left my mind when he said he had about 100 of those dispatch services calling him a week, and I'm like, well, how can that be? Because they're usually busy calling me.
That's what I mean. The minute you apply for your authority, this just explodes, and this isn't necessary. There is no reason everybody should have access to those phone numbers and emails.
But we're talking more at the bottom, just the brain fart that just hit me here. And I'm sitting here at the truck show and stuff you see today, right? And we're talking about things are going down and they're in the bottom and all that, right?
Yeah.
When in the past, when we were young, did you ever see a dump trailer that was fully polished anywhere?
No. Do you know?
Did you? It was rare to see a truck with aluminum wheels, right?
Yeah. Do you know how much work that must be?
Well, and then there's another one with a mural painted on a dump trailer. I mean, you remember how dump trailers and dump trucks always looked, right?
They
worked
like
them, right?
They were worked, right? The way they should look. Yeah.
So when we're talking about these tough times we're in, and I see some of the stuff that I see going down the road where, like, aluminum wheels are just like steel wheels were back in the day. There's probably more steel wheels than there are aluminum, just about. Probably if you take trailers out, it would be anyway, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it reminds me of that thing I always see where they talk about in the 50s that a single income could put a kid through college, have a car and all this. Yeah, but they had one car, one bathroom in the house. And we're not living in that bad of times.
The average house was 1,200 square feet. You're right. You had one car, one TV, one phone line.
If you had a TV.
If you had a TV, right. And you got 3 channels because you had an antenna. You didn't pay for TV the way we do now. You didn't pay for a music subscription the way you have now. We didn't pay for 37 different internet subscriptions. We didn't have, I grew up with there were 7 of us. Imagine what it would have cost if every one of us had a cell phone, which is the way it is today. 8-year-olds have cell phones now. So yeah, it's funny that you bring that up, because every time I see that comparison, I have a whole thing that I've saved and I go through that whole list. Well, sure, there's inflation and things have changed, but let's look at how those people lived back then. They did not consume the way we consume now.
Well, even when I look at trucking, just keeping it within our subject, right? And I always have, especially when it's like a 20-some-year-old telling me that he wants to go back to the good old days, I'm like, they weren't that good.
Now, you had mentioned, polished aluminum rims. Henry, you and I are both old enough to remember Dayton wheels.
Oh, yeah, that's all we had where I work.
Exactly. I mean, most people wouldn't even know what that is today. And boy, were they ugly.
We called them farm wheels.
Yeah, they were ugly. All right, let's grab.
Well, if you put the chrome caps on them and painted the center a different color and the rim silver, you looked pretty fancy back then.
I always wondered how we ever kept tires on those things the way they wobbled most of the time.
Well, if you had somebody good, they'd put a paint can or something next to the tire and keep spinning the tire as they torqued all the.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but
I forget what they called them little plates in there.
Yeah, the big qualifying statement was that if you had somebody good.
While we're on that subject of talking about good in a technician, it's funny when when there's a disaster and a mechanic took a shortcut and it caused a disaster and everybody's like, and just all over them, right? And I had a story like this where it went the wrong way because the mechanic did the wrong thing, right? And they're like, oh, all these mechanics. And I'm like, yep. And how good was your pre-trip this morning?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Well, all you have to do is sit in the truck.
Everybody takes shortcuts.
And you know how good their pre-trip was. They woke up, climbed out of the bunk, turned the key, and went down the road.
No, come on, Kevin. They made sure their phone was charged in there.
Okay. You're right. All right. We're going to grab a call, and I will tell you it's the last call on the board right now. So if we wrap this one up and there are no more, I'm going to get my weekend started early. Or if you call in, we'll stay here and take your calls. So it's up to you. 855-950-3835 or hit that call now button on your app. Let's go to Ohio. Chuck, welcome.
Hi, Kevin. It's Numbers Chuck.
Yeah, what's on your mind today?
Been a little while.
Yeah.
Oh, good. No cancer for the wife, so still out here trucking.
Okay.
Because last time I called you, there was possible cancer scare for me wife.
Yes.
And I was willing to sell it all just to go take care of her and all that good stuff. So, yep, no cancer. Ended up being cat scratch, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah, that's what was causing all her lymph nodes to swell up real bad. So.
Hey, this is a little crazy. I don't know what's going on this week. I mentioned yesterday that I got my live stream videos seem to be attracting new people, and that's the whole point of it. But I had a driver respond to one of my live stream videos earlier this week, and he said, I used to work for Kevin Rutherford back in the 80s, and I drove for him for Spartan and RPS. And I said, well, yeah, that was me. So one of my drivers from the 80s found me. Now I'm looking at my my chat window. I check it once in a while when I've got a minute, and I just got a message. I want to shout out to Glenn Talley. I served in the Army with him, and he just sent me a message on my live stream. How cool is that?
Really
Small world.
I know. Love that. All right. Where were we?
So,
Now that I took us off track.
that's all right. Been, keeping the old nose to the grindstone, working as hard as I can, moving as much as I can. Where do we leave off at in working with my numbers and so on and so forth is, right now I'm at 79 cents a mile profit.
Okay.
Right?
What do you have in it? There's no driver wage or anything else included in that, right? That's just profit.
No, yep. Just I'm sole proprietor. Yep.
Okay. So that is what's left over as your money, right?
Correct.
Okay. And in today's world, that's still a good number. You know, we have to remember there was a time where $1 a mile net was becoming almost common because rates were so strong, fuel prices weren't bad. We had the fuel surcharge. Everything was pretty peachy there for a while. But in today's world, 79, 80 cents a mile profit is strong.
Yeah, fairly strong. I agree. Blowing tires every week, though, that sucks.
Why are we blowing so many
tires? Whoa. You're blowing tires every week.
Yeah, and I have a low pro step deck Rettenauer trailer. That's open trailer. And,
okay.
And since the end of May, I've blown 7 tires.
Okay. So do you happen to run a tire monitor?
The trailer came with that automatic tire inflation system. It failed. I found out that's why some of them were blowing. So disabled that, pulled off all the little hoses, individually inflated all the tires, and they still say pop. And what? Other than brand is the one brand I was using, and once I started switching that from that brand, then they stopped popping so bad.
Well, tell us what brand.
So
a Bridgestone, the 17.5 low pro, those low pro little 17.5 tires.
Really?
Yeah, they're probably 60-mile rated too, aren't they?
I'm sorry?
A lot of them small ones like that, Kevin, are rated for max speed of 60.
Yeah, you're right. Nobody ever pays attention to that either.
Those ones,
they do after
were rated for 68 mile an hour.
Okay.
That's according to the website.
So what I'd suggest you to do, and I have one and I'm looking right at mine on my dash as I'm sitting here at the truck show, is having a tire monitor.
I agree.
Because if you that's just money in the bank.
And
tires are expensive. Fuel's expensive. Tire monitors are cheap.
And make sure the tire monitor you get. I don't really endorse or have a strong recommendation anymore. We used to. The company got bought, and we don't have a relationship with them anymore. And I haven't done research on this a while. We did a ton of research on the best systems out there, and we did about a 2-year test on several of them. I will tell you this.
Sure.
Every system we ever used, you will eventually have a problem with one of the sending units, whether they're internal, external, screw on, but it's not that big of a deal. But here's the one thing I would absolutely tell you. Do not buy a tire pressure monitor that doesn't also measure temperature. For me, the temperature sometimes was more important than the pressure.
Sure. Yeah, because once it gets too hot, then it wants to blow as well.
Not only that, we could diagnose like wheel bearing issues and all kinds of other stuff. Too much stress on the wide singles because of the outset, because it would get the axle really hot. So you can tell a lot from having that temperature reading.
I found a broken return spring on the top side of the shoes from it.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, wow.
So what I find interesting, the word blow a tire, and I used to have a relationship with Bridgestone, actually, is where I found this out. And the word that I blew a tire, for one, it's impossible to blow a tire, which I found shocking. And the reason they said that, this is engineering using the word literal.
Right. Right.
What happens is they usually will run low from a nail or whatever. You know, you're not checking the tire every minute. And that's what got me to get a tire monitor. I had just checked my tires and I lost one 10 miles down the road.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Because I ran out of something going out of the lot. But
Hey.
They tried to blow a tire, physically blow a tire.
Doesn't it take over like 300
And what I found
interesting,
right around, as I remember, it was 400 PSI, the rim collapsed first.
Exactly. Yep. The rim will fail before that tire will actually explode from too much pressure. Now,
the other one I found interesting was when Virginia was looking to make retreads illegal.
Oh.
And then when they checked the roadside debris, they found out there's more retreads, but it turned out it was 50-50 with virgin tires, what they were finding.
Right. Now,
how about, hey, I gotta jump, Kevin.
Hey,
Kevin, I'm going to say have a good day. I got to jump. Take care.
All right. See ya. He's going to miss my comment.
Henry?
No, I think he's still on the board, but I think he probably muted something. Hey, Chuck, do you want to get a little politically incorrect for a second?
Oh, no, not at all. What's going on politically is so mind-blowing, it's unreal. So
yeah, so this will not be a politically correct statement, but since we're talking about blowing a tire, there's another phrase I remember being fairly common when I was a kid. I was kind of a gearhead, and I had a lot of cars, and you just wouldn't want to use this phrase anymore, but it wasn't all that uncommon to say, I blew a tranny.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. We probably don't want to use that one much today.
Second.
Oh, you missed it?
Yeah, no, I get you broke up for a second, and maybe it's me or you.
No, it's probably the internet in between us somewhere. I said one of the phrases I used to hear quite often, being a gearhead growing up in the 60s and 70s, was I blew a tranny. Probably don't want to use that statement anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, no, yeah. People would probably look at your cross-eyed.
It could have a very different meaning these days.
Oh yes, most definitely, I agree. Most definitely. Unfortunately, and how things have changed in the last 20 years is just crazy.
And even more so in the last 4.
Oh, good, yeah, for sure. But right now, I landed on, I'm doing a concert tour for the next month and a half or so.
Yeah.
And I talk about steady pay. And if people can get on that type of thing, wow, you get paid a really nice daily rate. I'm just going to throw a number out, $700+ a day, whether you're living or not. All this concert equipment around.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. And if you manage to really get lucky and pull for somebody like Taylor Swift, you might get $100,000 bonus.
That wouldn't be bad either.
Yeah,
but it's also fuel reimbursed on top of it.
Oh, okay. Okay, sounds like a deal.
So there's, I can't complain. Why would you turn down the deal where they said, oh, by the way, your fuel's reimbursed on top of it. So whatever you spend on fuel, send us a receipt and we'll put it in your pay.
Got it. We kind of had a similar situation like that at FedEx when for years and years they didn't give a fuel surcharge. They guaranteed you would only pay $1.25 a gallon for your fuel, which is exactly what a fuel surcharge does. They just did it differently. And for me, I hated it because it made everybody even. It didn't matter if you got 4 miles to the gallon or 10 miles to the gallon. There was no advantage really because of the way they did it. Whereas if you get a fuel surcharge, the better your fuel economy is, that can become a bonus program.
Oh, absolutely.
So then they finally switched and they gave us a fuel surcharge, which I absolutely loved. My revenue went up significantly overnight, my net revenue. But then they went one step further. They did not base their fuel surcharge on a national average or even an average in a lane. They based the fuel surcharge on what you paid for fuel. So if the national average was, $3.48, but you paid $3.90 for fuel, you got a fuel surcharge based on $3.90. It was the best fuel surcharge program I had ever seen.
Sure. Yeah. Now, I wish my company did that I'm leased to, because they go off the national average.
Almost everybody does. FedEx was the only company I had ever seen that had a program like that. I don't know if they still have it or not. I haven't been there in 12 years. So, but that's the way it used to be.
Right.
All right, Chuck, thanks for the call. I'm all out of calls, and Henry is MIA. He's still up on the board, but I'm not sure what he's doing. Well, I guess he's working a truck show. So I don't think I have anything else I wanted to talk about today. I was going to say I'll wait for calls, but unless I see one come in here in about 10 seconds, I think I'm going to wrap this up for today and get my weekend started. I don't think I have any announcements for today. We've got a bunch of stuff coming up that I'll be talking about. But I don't want to talk too much about it today. A couple events coming up. I've been planning some travel again. Not looking forward to the travel part, but I'm looking forward to the events. I got a couple great events coming up. So I will be telling you more about that. I don't see any calls coming in, so it looks like we're going to wrap this up and call it a weekend. We will see you back here on Monday. Be safe, be profitable, be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey.